So, good morning. I think you all know who I am. If you don't, I'm Steve Nash, Chief Executive of the IMI. And I'm here today to talk about something that is central to anybody's business, whatever you do in automotive, and that's people. Without which we don't have a business, do we? And we have a particular challenge in automotive because of, like all sectors, we have a shortage of people. But our challenges are very specific. What we have is a very exciting time, of course. I mean, challenging but exciting. Lots and lots of change. Unprecedented. There's nobody here, even oldies like me, who can remember a time when it was like it is now. You'd have to have been around 100 plus years ago when the automotive industry was starting to have seen a time where there was so much change going on all at the same time. So we've got some amazingly exciting stuff happens, some great career opportunities, but we still have a rather worryingly large skills gap. Let's just look at some numbers. I don't want to go through all of these, but I mean, there's roughly sort of 800,000 or so people working in automotive. And as you can see from the numbers, just under 600,000 of them work outside the factory gates. So whenever the government talk about automotive, they tend only to ever talk about automotive manufacturing, which of course is really important to the UK economy. But they rather overlook the fact that there are so many people and so many subsectors. There's a figure that's not on here, but I'm reliably assured there are something like 48 trade bodies in automotive, which we aren't a trade body, by the way. We're the one and only professional body, but there are 48 trade bodies who all do a great job, and it kind of underlines how diverse our industry is. And I think that we've got, when we look at the challenges we have for people, it's not even across the whole sector. There are some subsectors that have really, really specific and quite severe challenges. So the latest vacancy rates in automotive, basically we measure this on a regular basis. The current number is 26,000 vacancies across automotive. That's outside the factory gates. That's a record number. Certainly, records, as you see here, began 21 years ago, and we've never seen a number that big. The worrying thing for us is that number's going in the wrong direction. Each time we measure it, it gets bigger. And there are lots of other sectors. I attend a number of meetings, cross-sectoral meetings, where absolutely everybody's talking about talent. They're all talking about lack of people, how you find people, how you retain them. But most of them, other than food and accommodation, which were the only sectors that were worse affected than us in the pandemic, we sit worryingly very high on the list. So, and then when you look inside that, we all know that there's a real shortage of technicians, particularly in heavy goods. I mean, that's really extreme, but generally, there's a massive shortage of technicians. There's a real shortage of people in the body and paint area. The worrying thing, there is no lifeboat coming down the stream with a load of people in it. This is a demographic problem. We've got an upside down population like most Western countries. The big bulk of people in that baby boomer group are dropping off the end, and there aren't huge numbers coming in the other side. But this isn't all negative, by the way. I'm just setting up the proposition, so to speak. So we believe, and this is based on the fact that now our researcher has kind of unique access, really, or probably unique in automotive access to Office of National Statistics numbers, which you're not allowed to have if you're a commercial organisation. So as a professional body, they'll let us have that. You have to take a special qualification to access that stuff. She's done some amazing analysis, but slightly worrying. It shows us that over the next 10 years, we're going to need over 111,000 people to replace the people dropping off. And that's just pure demographics. That's retirements and so on. We know that that a lot, as I say, the bulk of that is replacement, but there will be new jobs too. I mean, those of us who've been in the industry for a long time know that the variety of jobs we have is constantly changing. If you went back 20 years ago and talked about having diagnostic bays or programming bays, sorry, in your dealership, You wouldn't have known what that meant, but then very quickly that became the norm, didn't it? And we know that obviously with electrification, the whole ACES piece, the autonomous, connected and electric, we're going to need people with new skills. And certainly we need more and differently skilled technicians. So what are we doing? Well, one of the things that we're doing, we've been working with a cross-industry group on we've been leading a diversity task force. Now, people have different opinions on this. This is very, very pragmatic. This is saying that actually if there's a general shortage of people, you absolutely can't afford to be fishing in just a small part of the pond. We need to be accessing the entire population. We know that we're not alone in working on this. We know we work very closely with organisations like the Automotive 30% Club, because half of the population are female, and we've never actually been brilliant at bringing women into the industry, and particularly at promoting them up to the highest levels, but progress is being made there. What are we doing about that? Well, we are going to be heading a campaign which we actually want as many people as possible to get involved in. Look, there's no silver bullet to solving the people challenge. We can initiate things, but everybody has to do their bit. So, we're an ambitious and a far-reaching organisation, but we need everybody to join in with us to make this happen. Because if you just rely on us to try and solve the problem, it ain't gonna happen. This perception campaign that we're going to be launching is about informing people what is actually available in automotive. Most people haven't got a clue. If you talk to people outside the industry, they think we have people who sell cars, people who fix them, and a couple of people who manage them. It actually surprised me when I first became engaged with the IMI that on our website we had 150 different people on videos talking about what they do within retail automotive. Now, if you'd asked me, I'd have known there was a lot more than the 3 things that I talked about earlier on. I wouldn't have come up with a number as high as 150, though. And it grows all the time because, these are very sophisticated and very complicated businesses nowadays. So people need to understand that there are career paths. They need to understand as well that we're a meritocracy, that there are many, many people at very senior levels in our industry who started as apprentices. And what we're looking to do is highlight these kind of great stories with real people talking about the things that they've achieved. And we've got sort of various headlines for that, such as things are moving, struggling to recruit, not for much longer. It is about challenging perceptions, and I'm not going to go back over the tired old arguments about people talking about Arthur Daly and Phil Mitchell in EastEnders. That's honestly, if we go on banging on about that, we're being negative and we're looking backwards. The industry isn't like that, and it sure as hell isn't going to be like that going forwards. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if EastEnders featured Phil Mitchell failing his tech-safe assessment, but they probably never will. I think, though, that we need to be getting into to young people much earlier. We know that by the time that you get to sort of secondary school level, most people have already made up their minds. Some people might even remember we ran a campaign a while back where we featured a lot of 11-year-olds talking about their aspirations. Surprising to know that the vast majority of them already believe they knew what they wanted to do when they grew up. So you really have to be getting in very early, and you have to be influencing the influencers. You have to be influencing the parents and so on. So this is just the start of something. It's not the whole answer, but you can't sit on your hands. I mean, there are many things that we're doing behind the scenes with government. We're working with. You may have seen recently. I wrote to Gillian Keegan, the Skills Minister, or the Minister for Education, about the need to get some of our jobs onto what they call the shortage occupation list. That's really a mechanism by which you can bring people in from abroad without all of the real difficulties you normally get with immigration. We know that some of our problems exist because of Brexit and because an awful lot of particularly Eastern Europeans left the country after that happened. We don't have a ready-made source right now here in the UK. I think that these are hero stories, if you like. I think they're enticing. They're people talking about the jobs they do and how exciting they are and the opportunities that they've had, the opportunities that they can see they will have. And what we really need actually is more of those stories. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of them that we will be featuring, but we know that there are legion stories like that out in the industry. And that's where we need to get the engagement of all of you, is in telling us or putting forward people who would be willing to be featured. So, because this is an ongoing campaign, we'll be kicking it off in the early autumn. So how can you get involved? Well, we will be sharing this campaign. We'll be putting it out to all of you, out to the industry. We've got contacts here. We've got Sarah Sparks here, who's this lovely lady sitting at the front here. Joe Hollingdale, who's over on our stand. So we're in Hall 19. Please come and see us. We've got an employment report as well, which goes into a lot of detail about the current demographics in our industry, where the shortages are, really right down to sort of fine detail. And I think you'd all find that interesting. We've got a lot of information in the tote bags which are here, which I hope you'll take with you. You can also find out more information using this QR code. That's it. I forgot what it was called for a moment. So and you can look on our social channels for more updates. I think the thing is, look, I mean, to put things into perspective, we have a growing. We've been talking a lot about the numbers around EV technicians. We know that a lot of that was affected by the pandemic, so that no practical training really happened during the pandemic. We know that out of the roughly 250,000 technicians that exist in the country today, we need something like just over 100,000 of those to be qualified to be able to do the job that's going to be required by 2030. It goes up very rapidly from 2030 because obviously from that point onwards, it's only electrified vehicles that will be on sale. So it goes up to something like 130,000 a couple of years later. We also know, we've been highlighting that there's actually a shortage of people qualified to look at level 2 autonomy as well. By level 2 autonomy, I'm talking about ADAS principally. And I'm sure you all know, but if you don't, from the middle of last year, every single car sold in this country now has some level of ADAS. And it's probably more than you think. It's about 10 or 11 systems that most cars have as standard now. And it's kind of worrying that the gap. So we've been projecting a gap, which I'm pleased to say is closing around EV technicians. So we were projecting a skills gap around 2026, and it's moved up now to about 2029. So it's brilliant that actually the most engaged with qualification out of all the qualifications available to everybody in the industry are the EV qualifications. The level 2, level 3 EV qualifications are the most taken qualifications out of all the 600 or 700 qualifications available in the industry. So that's good. So people are doing the right thing and they are getting there. There still needs to be a bit more pace for us to get to where we need to go. It's a bit more worrying though around ADAS. That's a difficult one to measure because, I mean, I don't doubt that there's some people who've done some training on ADAS that's non-accredited. They've maybe done some internal training and so on. But I mean, given that it's a standard now, and it's a terribly slow process, but there is some regulation going through Parliament, which has been going on forever. I think it's called the Autonomous and Electric Vehicles Bill, or the other way round. And within that, we've been talking to government about making sure there's appropriate regulation for people who work on any form of autonomy. And by that, I mean the hands-off bit. Which we already have, don't we? I mean, and there will be some level 3 cars entering the market this year, and certainly into next year. So, we really do need to know the people who have set those vehicles up know what they're doing. And I think this is a big education process for government because they're not terribly up with what the technology really means. But there's still a big job for us to do as an industry. apprenticeships, in terms of people generally, I mean, unfortunately, we're a bit of a boom-bust industry. So if you go back to the financial crisis, 2007, 2008, apprenticeships pretty much stopped. And we were still feeling the effect of that in 2020. In fact, in March 2020, we had a meeting with a group of HR directors from the top 15 dealer groups in the country. And you could summarize that by saying it was all about attraction and retention, and particularly technicians. They were all talking about the shortage of technicians. And that was because we'd had those 2 or 3 years when almost no apprentices were trained. And of course, within that very month, we hit the first lockdown, and the same thing happened again. So we had at least a couple of years where apprentices were not recruited, some were let go, and now it's good to see the numbers are back again. So, I mean, we're very busy assessing apprentices at the moment, but we're still not back where we were pre-pandemic. And in fact, since the introduction of the apprenticeship standards, we've never hit the number in any industry, and particularly in automotive, we've never hit the numbers that we had pre-standards under the old frameworks. If you remember, the coalition government boasted about 2 million apprenticeship starts in their parliament, and the next government, the next Tory government that came in, said we're going for 3 million. You heard them mention that since? You know, we're not even at the 2 million anymore. So there's a big job for the industry to do. Look, having been in the industry all my life, I know how it works. I mean, you've got to make the day to make the week, to make the month, to make the quarter. And it's a very coin-operated business, isn't it? So costs are, people costs are high. And I can understand why people did what they did during the pandemic. But we really urgently need to get back on it. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, because a lot of you are in the training side of things and the people development side. But there's still a big job to do in terms of helping ourselves. But overall, we're dealing with that simple demographic problem. I don't know whether you know that post-pandemic, just over 20% of the potential working population didn't come back. That was people who took early retirement and so on. There's been a little bit of a reversal in that because the cost of living crisis has driven some people back into work. But really what we're looking at here is opportunities for everybody. So this isn't just about 16 to 18-year-olds. This is about career changers. It's about people coming back into the workplace. We as an organisation, we're not a huge organisation, but we overspend our apprentice levy. And I can never understand why other people don't do that. We put loads and loads of our experienced people through level 4, level 5 apprenticeships, constant learning. It amazes me that some of our biggest employers massively underspend their apprenticeship levy. They do training that could be done under the banner of an apprenticeship, but they actually pay out money to do that and give back their levy. Absolutely bonkers, but that's a job for all of us, isn't it, to keep working on that and kind of bring them into the fold, so to speak. So, look, I mean, I'd urge you to read the reports that we've got, and we'll be publicising that. I mean, actually, I think we're debuting the report today, aren't we? It's very detailed, but it shows. I know elsewhere on the show, I know that Stephen Hay, who's the chief exec of the National Tyre Distribution Association, has also got a great piece of information that talks about their specific challenge, and we've sort of highlighted that within our numbers. Getting tyre technicians and so on is an even bigger problem than getting, vehicle technicians and everything else. So, there are, as I say, there are some very specific challenges, but self-help is what it's all about. So, yeah, come and engage with us. Let us know what you think. Tell us if you think we're talking rubbish, or tell us if you think we need to do something different. But let's all work together and see if we can actually address this problem. Thank you.